To introduce to you Shay Hillsman, who is a cafeteria worker in the Chicago public school system. And we just won a really historic fight in Chicago. We not only settled a really good contract for the cafeteria workers in Chicago at a moment when not a lot of public sector workers, or private sector for that matter, are able to do that, but we won it primarily by focusing on the quality of food. And we have really sought to make partnerships with the sustainability movement and the kind of good food movement in the U.S. and emphasize that food service workers like ours are a key part of making sure that school for school children is quality, and we feel like our workers are the most effective spokespeople for standing up and saying, we want to feed the school children of Chicago or any other city food that we ourselves would be proud to serve our kids. So Shay was one of the leaders of that fight, and she's going to talk about that.
Good morning, everyone, and I first want to say thank you again for allowing me to come and speak to you on behalf of my 3,100 other co-workers who could not be here. I've been a 7-year food service worker within CPS in the kitchen as a porter. And I've also resided in Chicago my whole life, and I've lived in 2 of the most impoverished communities. I say that to say that I know firsthand the need for the sustainable food in these communities that I'm seeing slowly leave. Because maybe about 3 years ago, the mayor moved a lot of the free lunch programs and the accessible healthy food programs into Chicago public schools. Around the same time, he started the conversion of prepackaged food he implemented into the school systems, therefore depriving our children of the access. Because prepackaged food is comparative to a TV dinner. It's maybe about, for example, 5 to 8 tater tots in a plastic foil wrapped container.
Ew.
And I myself going into the schools these last few weeks and also knowing my co-workers, I know the waste of this product. It's 95% not likable by the children. We started our campaign surveying the students as well as the food service workers to expose the truth in these schools. And so now I told you why I'm fighting. I'm fighting first and foremost because I care about the children. Secondly, because I've been a resident in these communities. And so I'm going to tell you how I got involved in the fight, because I started actually with mixed emotions of fear and anger. It started because I wanted to band together with my coworkers, but I was afraid. And so traditionally in my family, we're very, not as religious, but we're a religious family. So about a month before I got into the fight, my car broke down, so I had to go to a neighborhood church. You guys are not familiar with it, but it's a very large church in Chicago, led by Bishop Brazier. He's a very prominent figure in the black community as far as churches. And so I said, this would be a good church to go to. And so I went. And the first week going, I went to the 11 a.m. service. And at 11 a.m. service, they showed the recap from 8 a.m. The 8 a.m. had a special guest of honor. The guest of honor was none other than our governor, Pat Quinn, presenting the church with a multi-million-dollar check. And so I noted it to mind, I said, this is weird, but it's something fishy. So about 2 weeks later, when we launched our campaign against Chicago public schools to tell the truth on what was going on in the schools, I started to notice the increase in the actual coming out of the radio campaigns, negatively attacking the union members. They would never refer to us as the parents, the families of these children, which we are. And so I started to hear the negative radio ads against us. And 2 weeks after that, I returned to the church. And I was kind of taken aback. Bishop Brazier, he introduced the next guest of honor. And he said, his opening statement was, I'm not going to stand with people who want to line their pockets with money and greed. And I'm saying greed, we're the workers. We're the workers. We've accepted a pay cut for over a year, so we've shown that we are truly dedicated to our children. We're not asking for more money. And when he introduced the guest of honor, it blew me out of the water. It was none other than the Chicago School Board President, Jean-Claude Broussard. And for a church to actually stand with him, our church, and the members in the pews, they began to rise. These were people who had been following him for generations. I spoke with one woman after I'll explain. She had 5 generations of her family to attend this church. And so the people, they began to stand, crying, they began to leave the church. And so they have a portion which is common in most African-American churches. It's called the Put It on the Altar sermon. And it's what I traditionally do when I'm going through things in my life that I feel are beyond my human control. I'll go and I'll take it to church and I'll put my problems on the altar for God to solve. And so when they had this portion in church, I was so angry that the people who had been there, this was a church I was visiting, that they began to stand and rise and leave because they were disheartened by what their pastor for generations had said. And when they had the portion of putting it on the altar, I speedily raced there because I was angry. I was scared, but I was just trembling with anger. And I said, for you to use your platform within the community and your pillars to do negativeness and to do maliciousness to your own people, people who have been following you for years, to use it negatively and to give misinformation, you're wrong. And it's a shame the day that the church can be bought and sold, because as I told you before, the following weeks prior to this, I got to see our governor hand a multi-million-dollar check to this church. And this church is prominent because it umbrellas about maybe 10 churches within the black community, and for you to use that platform to do negativeness to its own people. And after I gave my put it on the altar sermon, the security tapped me on the shoulder and said, they're asking you to leave. They're asking you to leave. But I wasn't angry that I done it. I would do it 10 times over. And I actually went to the parking lot and I raced to my phone to instantly go to my Facebook and blog what was going on. I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm happy to say that through all this and my going into this with mixed feelings, I don't regret it one day. I don't regret it one day. We won a great justice on April 4th, not only for the workers, but for the children of Chicago. They're not going to convert any more schools over to prepackaged food cooking schools, because just the implementation of 20 schools with PPF, it devastated over 400 families. I don't want to begin to imagine what it would be like if he got to proceed on with his plan to convert 200 schools. I don't want to know how many families it would devastate. So I do thank you for your time and allowing me to come and speak to you, and thank you for also helping us in our fight, because we had to go viral.